Every so often, as language learners, we face something incredibly dangerous to our progress: burnout. Studying is one of the most important things you can do. At least that's what everyone tells you. But truthfully, studying can be pretty frustrating at times, and more often than we'd like to admit, it's the last thing that we want to do. There are hours of grammar exercises, endless lessons or exchanges, and they don't always go so well. And vocabulary memorization exercises that quite literally seem to slow down the clock. But somehow, successful language learners seem to find ways to get through their studies, and if you are serious about learning a new language, then it's something you'll need to learn to do too. But what is the secret? Let's talk about how to avoid burnout when studying a language. The first thing that you can do is set personal goals. Let's forget SMART goals for just 1 second and take a look at just doing something for you. We'll call them personal goals for now. In this context, your personal goals are what motivates you to keep learning. They're the things that you really want, whether or not they have a timetable or are measurable. Personal goals are the goals that inspire you and drive you, and they don't have to be as planned out as your shorter term goals. They can be two different things, and they can serve two different functions. You'll need to come up with measurable goals, or else you might not feel like you're getting anywhere, but it's totally okay to have personal reasons to want to learn languages that may not be quantifiable, especially if they make you love learning your language. So if you feel you're heading towards burnout, spend some time thinking about what your goals are beyond learning 20 new words this week, completing 2 chapters in your grammar book, or getting 300 points on Duolingo. Be consistent. Successful language learning is all about putting in the time each and every day. You need that dedicated time with the language that you're learning to make progress, even if it's only 5 to 10 minutes per day. It's all about putting in regular, consistent, and focused time into learning your language. That consistent time quickly becomes a habit, and it's harder to burn out when something is a habit because it's just something that you do. Have you ever burned out on brushing your teeth or combing your hair or washing your face? Probably not. Granted, things like brushing your teeth and learning a language aren't an even comparison. One has a much steeper learning curve than the other, but the slope doesn't feel so steep when you're working at it in small steps, no matter how high the climb takes you. Apply language learning to the activities you already enjoy. Boredom is one of the quickest ways to burn out in language learning. If you aren't loving the materials or methods that you're using, you're sure to stop studying. So rather than force yourself to sit through grammar drills or vocabulary exercises, try to find ways to incorporate languages in your life through the activities that you enjoy. For me, there are 3 things that I love doing besides learning languages, so I've switched all 3 of them into my target languages. They're reading. I do this in French and Spanish and occasionally Chinese, playing Nintendo. I do this in Chinese and French, and music. I listen to music in every language that I'm learning. This doesn't mean that I don't need to do grammar exercises, it just means that I give myself more balance in my language learning so that I don't get overwhelmed with the parts that I don't enjoy. Avoid overload. Impatience is another way language learners end up burning out. I know that I'm guilty of this. You want to learn fast, so you end up cramming, studying every spare moment, trying to stuff as much information into your brain as possible. But instead of remembering what you've learned, you end up remembering little, if anything, and you burn out. What was all the work you had been doing for? It's okay to have a 10-hour study session every so often, if that's your thing, but doing it on a regular basis is neither beneficial to your learning nor very healthy. So learn in moderation. What do you do if you've already hit burnout? Sometimes it might feel like it's too late. You've already hit that critical point where it seems like enough is enough. But don't worry, you can recover from language learning burnout. Here are just a few ways that you can rekindle your motivation for learning a language. Take a break. Studying your target language each and every day is a good strategy, but if you're feeling unmotivated or burned out, you're not learning as effectively as you would be if you came back to it with renewed energy. Sometimes breaks are okay. You shouldn't feel guilty for taking them if you need to, especially if it keeps you from quitting the language altogether. Just make sure that the break doesn't become permanent. Change things up. Perhaps the learning methods or resources you're using aren't right for you. Try implementing something new or completely different into your strategy as a way of not only refreshing what you're doing and thus making it less boring, but also explore if there might be something out there that works better for you. If you normally work with a grammar book, you can make a small change, like using a different grammar book, or make a big change and switch the audio-based resources. If you normally work with apps, try switching to more traditional materials like a course book. Or if you normally use YouTube video lessons, you could try switching to native source material like vloggers who share videos in your target language or even a TV series. Remind yourself why you're doing this. It's easy to burn out when you get lost in the day-to-day process and forget to step back and look at the big picture to remind yourself why exactly you're learning a language. There's an expression that goes, you can't see the forest for the trees. And it means that it's easy to get overwhelmed by the details and forget about the broader view. This is why I highly advise keeping a learning notebook or journal. That way you can look back to see how far you've come and also remind yourself of why you started in the first place. It's a great motivator. So what about you? Have you ever experienced burnout when learning a language? How did you find the motivation to keep going? I'd love to hear about your experience in the comments. Thanks for watching.